Today we're going to be looking at the life and times of Jesus. The Bible says, in the fullness of time had come, God sent forth his Son, born of a woman, born under the law. What we need to understand is God has been preparing for thousands of years for his Son to come. What does it mean in the fullness of time? Well, first there's the Pax Romana. There's this peace. Now it's held in control by the Roman army, but there is still a worldwide peace around the entire Mediterranean Sea, so people can live in peace. Secondly, the Jews have been dispersed across the entire world, really, but particularly what we would call the Roman Empire. Because of the Babylonian captivity and other things, Jews have been scattered all over. So therefore their teachings have been scattered. People are familiar with their God to some extent, so that when Jesus' teachings come, it will not be something new to them. Second, there's a hunger for justice and decency across the entire empire. It just doesn't, people want more than what they have in life. There's a common language and culture. Now it's not Roman, it's Greek culture. The Romans conquered the Greeks, and then the Greek culture conquered the Romans. And so we have a Greek common language. So when they travel anywhere in this area, they're going to be able to be understood by somebody. And they have cultural norms that they can apply. And lastly, travel is fairly easy. The world is really gotten fairly small. The Romans have built roads all over. There's travel going in all directions, and it's relatively easy. So when God's Son comes into the world, his disciples can scatter it over the entire world in just one generation. God has made things ready. The world is now ready for his coming, and he's on his way. So let's talk about the early life of Jesus. We find this called the Annunciation, which is a fancy word for saying the announcement of a birth, to 30 years old. We start off with the Annunciation of John the Baptist in the Bible. We start off with an old couple that can't have children. Does that sound familiar? Like Abraham and Sarah? They're a very old couple. He is a priest. Now, he's not the high priest, which is on the right. He is the regular priest, which is on the left. So let's talk about the function of a priest in Jesus' time. What was he doing? They lived in small villages around the country most of the time. They would gather in certain places. On a rotating basis, they would go to the temple and serve 2 weeks on duty each year. Now they'd also go in for the festivals. All men had to go to the festivals. But mainly 2 weeks out of the year they serve, and the other 50 weeks they can do what they want to. Many of them had other professions. There are a listing of professions that a priest could have. They would come to the temple and do their work here. We start off at night with the temple being dark. There are 24 stations around the temple, and the Levites have 240 watchers, 10 in each station, to watch what's going on and to make sure nothing happens. There's a never-ending fire burning on the altar. And now in the temple, in a special chamber, the priests have been selected to do the offerings for this particular day. There were so many of them that they only got to do some things once in their entire life. They've been staying there so they wouldn't get polluted, wouldn't touch anything dead, wouldn't touch anything that had been touching something dead, blood or etc. Early, way before dawn, they go to the mikveh baths and take a ceremonial bath. You go up, down the left side of this and up the right side. You dip into the water. It's not that you're cleaning yourself off. You're cleaning yourself symbolically of sin. Then they go back to that chamber and they cast lots. One priest will be chosen to remove the ashes from the altar, from the fires that have been burning there overnight. He will go and wash in the bronze laver, right foot with his left hand and left foot with his right hand. After washing, he would climb the altar and sweep away the ashes in a silver pan. Another would bring fresh wood for the offering. Then they go and cast lots a second time to choose who will do what with the offering itself. Who will slaughter the victim? Who will sprinkle the blood on the altar? Who will remove the ashes from the altar of incense? Who will trim the lampstand? Who will carry the head and hind legs? Now I know this is really a whole lot of detail, but you need to realize they have so many priests at this time, for them to be able to participate, they break it into really small functions. Another will carry the two forelegs up for offering. Another will carry the tail and other hind leg. One will carry the breast and neck. One will carry the two sides. One will bring the offering of flour. One will bring the entails. Another will bring the offering of flour. Another will bring the baked offering from the high priest. Another will bring the wine offering. One of them, the watcher, will climb to the pinnacle of the temple. We know that right here is the pinnacle of the temple because we found a stone that said that had fallen down here after the destruction of the temple. This is what the Temple Mount looks today like in that corner. And this is what it would have looked like in Jesus' day. On the far right corner, they would have stood. He's observing. When he sees the first light of the dawn over the desert, which will be back to the east, he says, "The morning shines already." Then another will say, "All the way to Hebron?" In other words, has it spread all the way across the horizon, or is it still in one spot? And he says, "Not yet." But eventually he'll say, "Yes, all the way to Hebron." And when he agrees, the lamb is led out for slaughter. This lamb has been in a special room in the temple for 4 days. It has been checked every day for blemishes to make sure, and it will be checked again by candlelight to make sure there are no blemishes. It'll be given a drink of water from a golden bowl. Then it'll be tied to a ring in the floor of the temple, pointed head west. At this time, the doors are open and the people are let in. Silver trumpets are blown 3 times to announce the sacrifice is about to happen. At the same time, 2 priests clean the incense altar and the lampstand inside the temple. They walk up into the temple, and as they open the door, this signals for the sacrifice of the lamb. Its blood is collected in a golden bowl, and is sprinkled to the east of the altar and on the stones of the altar. This is a sacrifice altar, not the altar of incense. The victim is then unbound and skinned. The entails are washed in marble tables, and the carcass is cut into the prescribed portions that each priest is to carry. The portions are carried up on the altar by the selected priest, and salt is added as they are placed on the top of the altar, ready to be burned. They're not on fire yet. The priests gather again in the hall of polished stones, and there they cast lots. Who will burn the incense before the altar? This is before the Lord, inside the holy place before the Ark of the Covenant. This is one of the most important things that you can do. This represents the prayers of the people. You stand before God doing this. You will only do this once in your entire lifetime. Once you have been chosen, you can never be chosen again because there's so many priests that they have so many of them. You'll serve from ages 30 to 50 years old. And as he walks to go and put this incense on, he bangs a cymbal. This assembles all the people outside the door of the temple. The temple comes alive with hundreds and even thousands of worshipers streaming in to see the morning sacrifice. He enters the holy by himself, and no one else can enter until he is finished. So he goes into this area right in here, the holy place. Right here is the altar of incense. Back here is where the Ark of the Covenant is. There's a curtain right here, and he's standing right here to offer that sacrifice. This is what it might have looked like inside that temple, according to descriptions. As he is doing this, offering the incense, the angel Gabriel appears to him and tells him he's about to be a father. He laughs and says, I haven't had children till now. I'm not going to have children. He doesn't seem to believe, and so the angel says he will be struck dumb and cannot speak until the baby is born. As he has offered the incense on the altar, the smoke has risen through the door, and the people bow down in silent prayer. As this happens, the land is set on fire, and the meal offerings are also made on the altar itself. As the priest pours out the drink offering, the psalm of the day is sung by the Levite choir. As they sing, you remember those selahs you sometimes see in the psalms as you read them? Those are pauses. And they'll blow the trumpet twice, and people will bow down and pray to God as they blow the trumpet. The flames consume the meat and burn brightly with the oil and salt. Offering of the morning sacrifice is now over, and people will start to bring their daily offerings. Zechariah comes out from the temple, and he cannot speak, and everybody knows he has seen a vision, but they don't understand. He finishes his time there and goes home. Now that's what a temple service would be like. They'll repeat all of that in the afternoon, just before sundown. And that's mainly what they did to worship God. They did this every day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and they would sometimes add sacrifices on special days of festivals. Now the Annunciation of Jesus we come to. You'll find this in Luke chapter 26, verse 28. You'll find this in Luke chapter 1, verse 26 through 28. And in the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent from God unto the city of Galilee, unto Nazareth, to a virgin espoused to be a man whose name was Joseph. Notice she's a spouse, she's not married, of the house of David, and the virgin's name was Mary. And the angel came in unto her and said, Hail thou who art highly favored, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women. And she was probably scared to death because she starts thinking about all the people in the Bible who have been highly favored by God and how much trouble they've had in their lives. He has come to Nazareth. Nazareth is located up here. This is the Sea of Galilee, the Dead Sea, the Mediterranean Sea. Jerusalem's down here. And this is Nazareth right over here on this side. A little bit closer view of that. This is where Nazareth is located. This is the Jezreel Valley. It's right on the edge of the Jezreel Valley. It's located in a saucer-shaped area down in a depression to some extent. You can go right past it and not even see it in ancient times. It is a podunk city, a small city. Think of a trailer community, a trailer court with a few construction workers in it. Here are some other pictures, woodcuts that have been made of it. Today, it's a huge modern city surrounding the area, but in the time of Jesus, it's probably just this little area right in here, around two churches. And these are the two churches. This is the Church of the Annunciation, and this is the Church of Joseph. And around in this area is where the city was located. As far as we can tell, that's the only ruins. They lived in caves. We'll talk about that more when we get to Jesus coming back to Nazareth. But inside the Church of the Annunciation, it's a modern church built in 1969. In the courtyard, you can see this opening here, and it looks down on those caves which are under the courtyard. I've been privileged to go down there a couple of times. We'll look at that more. Some of the guides knew the archaeologist who was doing the digging. Inside the church, in the basement of this church, is this structure here, which has been pointed out since early times as the home where Mary, Joseph, and Jesus lived. Whether it's accurate or not, I don't know. If it's not, it's one of these houses in this row. We'll talk about that more when we come back. Down the hill is the well for the town. It's got Church of St. Gabriel, which is a Greek Orthodox church built over it. Tradition is that Mary was at the well gathering water when the angel came to her. The well is down the hill a little bit. Here's the Church of the Annunciation. The town would have been here, and the well would have been down in this area here. This is a picture of the modern well today, and this is a picture of the Church of St. Gabriel. Two pictures, top and bottom, showing that church there. Closer view, you go in through this door, and it's a beautiful church inside. It's got lots of paintings and carvings in it. It has what is called an iconoclast. Iconoclast is a wall separating the priest who is doing the communion service from the people. You don't really see the Greek Orthodox priest do the service. You hear him do the service as you stand out, and then you come to the little door here to get communion. I'll have a better picture of this in a minute. But the walls have been painted by two nuns in the past, and they're beautiful pictures of the life of Jesus. Here we see that iconoclast across the front of the building here. This is where the congregation would have stood. They didn't sit, now they do now. And back here is where he is doing the communion service. Back there. It's off to the left is a stairway down into a grotto. In this grotto is where the well is. The water still flows there today, and some people think throwing coins in gives you, I don't know, some kind of luck or something like that. You can drink the water. There is a fountain there nearby that you can drink some of this water. It is pure enough to drink. Now let's talk about Mary, the mother of Jesus. We have many different pictures of what Mary looked like. You have thousands of them, mostly depicting her as a 20-something wearing blue, looking very stately, very composed, very together. But that's really not what Mary probably looked like. This from the Discovery Channel might be a better picture. This is the Mary we picture. 20 years old, very confident, very involved with people, wearing blue. Blue would be the royal color, but that's probably not what Mary was like. Mary was probably more like this. A 13-year-old poor girl who didn't have much of anything. This is what you really probably should be picturing Mary to be like. These are probably better pictures than most of what we have. She would have had dark hair, olive complexion, about 13 years old. How would we say that? Well, let's talk about betrothal and marriage. Girls would be betrothed 12 to 13 years old as soon as they come into puberty. Boys, on the other hand, would wait until after puberty, which was usually at 13, and learn a profession before they married. So Joseph could have been a teenager, 18 to 20 years old, or he could have been an older man who was a widower, often remarried to help have a wife to take care of his children. They're usually pledged at an early age. The father's role for his daughter is very significant because it is a very complex legality of the marriage. There are 10 different family classifications in Jewish life, like priest, Levite, full Jew, proselyte, convert, etc. There are rigid rules governing the intermarriages of these 10 classifications, and the father's responsibility is to understand these rules and to make sure his daughter gets a legal marriage. Now, in the Talmud, it says a young man is like a horse that whinnies. He paces up and down. He grooms himself with care. This is because he is looking for his wife. But a married man, he resembles an ass quite loaded down with burdens. Now, that's not me saying that, that's the Talmud. Marriage was between families, not between two individuals. You are joining two families together, and you're looking for a way to join two families that will make both of them stronger when you're looking for a proper mate for your boy or your girl. So therefore, this is big and important things, and fathers did this for their children. A good union might be your first cousin, because that would keep property inside the family. Now, at the time of the union, at the time of the pledging, you would get a ketubah, which is what the wife will get if divorced, and a mohar, which is the bride price, which you have to pay the father. You pay the father for raising the daughter and spending his resources to produce this girl for you, which is not going to add anything to him unless she gets married and gets this mohar. And what they would do is they would wear this often on their faces, around the necks, as jewelry. This woman has her mohar around her head. She was a very expensive bride. Remember, a woman loses one of her 10 coins. She lost part of her wedding ring. And she's very desperate to find that because she's been devalued. The betrothal is sealed with a meal and is legally binding as a marriage would be. The man who broke off the betrothal would have to pay the ketubah, which was the agreed upon price, plus he would have to support that woman financially until someone married her. The only way you could get out of that was if she committed adultery, and then you could put her away and she'd be stoned to death. Then, what the husband would do, so what Joseph is doing when he is putting her away privily is that he is agreeing to pay financially for her. It's going to cost him something. And then as he is leaving, as the father and husband are leaving, they say, I go to prepare a place for you. When I am finished, I will come for you. Heard that anywhere? That's what Jesus told his disciples just before he was crucified. What he means is this. In the Galilee, they lived in what were called insula homes. This is one home here. It had many different rooms off of an open courtyard, one entrance over here. See the entrance here into this home? This is another home. There'll be another home over here. And this is the synagogue. But what he would do is, this would have several different families in it, all related. It would have like a mother and father, their son, their son, their son, their son, maybe the son of the son, etc. So what the man does is, he goes back and he starts adding on to his parents' house, another room. He starts building this as he's working. When he gets finished, he thinks, he calls his father and says, hey, come look, I've got the house room ready. I'm ready to go get my bride. Father comes in, looks around and says, man, you can't bring a woman in here. Look at the holes in this wall. That ceiling's still leaking. Keep on working. Son keeps on working. He builds some more. He brings his father in. Father says, still, it's not good enough. Keep on going. The son does not know when he's going to get his bride. Only the father knows. That's what Jesus said. Only the father knows when I'm coming back. When the home is ready. When everything is ready. Now, usually it's within a year, but once his father has agreed, then they will make a procession. He and his friends will get together. They try to surprise the bride, but let's face it, this is a small town. Everybody knows what's going on. Everybody has been telling Mary, hey, Joseph's almost ready. He's almost got it ready. He's almost got, I hear he's almost there. She knows when he's coming. He gets dressed in his best and he heads to his wife, usually trying to surprise her. When he gets there, she comes out and usually has her bridesmaids with her who have lamps, and they all go back with this lamp lit during the night to the husband's home. Now, note the 10 bridesmaids, 5 had enough oil, 5 didn't. This is what they were doing. As they go through the town, they bang gongs and make noise so everybody knows, wedding's on, wedding's on. They go back to his home, go into his room that he has built, and consummate the marriage with the best man standing at the door and shout, they did it! And maybe bring even out a bloody rag to show that she was a virgin. Then they have a party. If it's a virgin, it's on Wednesday. If it's a widow, it's on Thursdays. And they will party for 7 days or longer, eating and drinking. Remember that Jesus goes to one of these parties. He brings 7 big fishermen with him. They didn't anticipate them coming. And they drank more than they're supposed to drink. And they ran out of wine. And we all know what Jesus did. He kept the party going. Then after the wedding feast is over, she becomes part of the family. She's legal property of the clan. She's assigned a task by the eldest woman in the clan, and she will do that until she's assigned another task. Now let's talk about the virgin birth just a few minutes. First off, I want you to understand it's only been mentioned twice in the entire Bible. Once in Matthew. Now all this was done that it might be fulfilled that was spoken of the Lord by the prophet, saying, behold, a virgin shall be with child, and shall bring forth a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, which meaning interpreted is God with us. And Luke chapter 1 verse 27, and a virgin espoused to a man whose name was Joseph of the house of David, and the virgin's name was Mary. This is the only 2 times it's ever mentioned in the Bible. It is never mentioned after the authors of the birth stories. And no author ever mentions it as proof of Jesus' divinity. When we start pushing this really hard, now I believe in a virgin birth. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't have been a virgin birth. But the point I'm trying to make here is God it was never used to prove that he was God. Now let's talk about Joseph for just a few minutes. What was the life of a tekton? Tekton, this word, is the word used in the Bible for what Joseph did. Now, it literally means builder. It could be builder out of wood or out of stone. Most of the time in the area he was in Nazareth, in Bethlehem, it was stone. He could have been working with some different types of woods. He could have also been a village carpenter, maybe making wheels or farming equipment, plows, yokes, tables, chairs, doors and doorposts, things like this. If he did, he would have been paid by goods in kind at harvest time. I'll give you 10 baskets of grapes if you'll make this for me. These are the kind of implements they would have used to make the thing. Now realize there are no lumber mills. He has to cut down the tree and make the board before he can make the table. He has to make a board to make the table out of. So it is very hard work. He's from Bethlehem. Now, the reason that is important is just over the hill from Bethlehem. This is the edges of Bethlehem. And over here on this hill, where you see that, Sepphoris was being built. Sepphoris is the new capital of the Galilee. Herod Antipas thought he needed a new capital there, and he's building a whole town from scratch over there. Now, Joseph being a builder in a little town called Bethlehem, a little town called Nazareth, right. A little town called Nazareth, 2 miles away from a major construction center. There's a very good likelihood, many people think, that he was working on this city, and Jesus did with him. It was a very large city. You can see some of the things here. It covered the entire area of these woods, plus way on out in here. This was a large city here. This is the area of, this is a suburb of Bethlehem in between them. This is the stadium that was there, the theater rather, the theater. Here's the floor, the mosaic floor of the synagogue that was there, artist rendering of what it might have looked like. So if a construction project is going on, it's a very good likelihood that possibly Jesus was involved in that building project. It just says tecton. How do we then get he was a carpenter? Well, building in England was mainly by wood. They built things out of wood. And so therefore, when they translated the word tecton into King James English, it came out as carpenter. There are several traditions about Joseph. Some say he was an old man, even a widower with children. You have to understand, it talks about the brothers and sisters of Jesus in the Bible. Now, if you believe that Mary was a perpetual virgin, as the Catholic Church does, then where do these brothers and sisters come from? Well, maybe it was that Joseph was a widower who had older children, married Mary, and her only child was Jesus. That fits in somewhat with Jesus giving Mary to John, his apostle, to take care of, instead of his own brothers and sisters to take care of. Others think that Mary was a virgin, she had a child, and she had many other children. We don't know for sure. Let's talk about Mary's visit now to Elizabeth. Mary has accepted the fact she's going to get a baby, and she's been told that her cousin Elizabeth is with child for 6 months. So Mary decides to go visit Elizabeth. And Mary arose in those days and went into the hill country with haste into the city of Judea, and entered into the house of Zacharias and saluted Elizabeth. And when she does, Elizabeth's baby leaps in her womb, knowing his master, his Lord, his Savior has come. Now, she would have left Nazareth and headed south toward Jerusalem. That's the hill country in Judea. And there's a city right outside of Jerusalem called Ain Karim. Ain meaning spring, so it's the spring of Karim. It's located right here. Here's Bethlehem, just giving context, so it's even closer to Bethlehem. And Ain Karim is actually just a really close suburb now within almost the city limits of Jerusalem. And she came there and met Elizabeth. This is the church. This is what Ain Karim looks like today. This is a wood cutting of the old time of what it would look like as a village. Today, there's a lot of tourist shops there. It's kind of a tourist trap to some extent downtown. You have 3 churches there of interest. First, the Church of the Visitation. This is the church where supposedly Mary met Elizabeth at. It has a big picture up on it of Mary coming to meet Elizabeth. Here's a better mosaic of that picture as they meet, all accompanied by angels as she comes. There's inside, there's a worship service going on. All these churches are active churches that just like your church here would be. There's a Russian Orthodox church there also. Doesn't like guests inside very much. And then in Karim is the Church of St. John the Baptist. This church is supposedly where John was born, where Elizabeth and Zacharias lived. You go up the street, tourist traps on each side, go in through this gate and enter the courtyard. There's a well there. Holes don't move, so this is probably the well at some time in the village. And around the wall is what's called the Magnificat. This is the statement that Mary made about how blessed she was by God. It's in hundreds of different languages. You go up these steps and into the church itself. Now the church is a conglomerate of things. The yellow part here is the older part of the church. It is out here areas that were built by the Crusaders, and this part up here was added later on even than that. But the main part of the church is this area right here. We're going to be looking inside here. Over here is a grotto. You go down steps, and that supposedly is where he was born. Here's the worship area we'll be looking at, and we'll be looking inside this area is what we're going to be looking at. This is the altar area. Over to the right is where you would go down into the grotto. Modern day. This is the altar. Picture of John the Baptist baptizing Jesus. Here you see the inside of the church, various views. Zacharias and Elizabeth, although this pictures Zacharias as being a high priest, he was actually just a priest. He'd just been wearing a white robe. This is the roof of that church. And then you go down into the grotto. And as you go into the grotto, you come to the little round disc underneath this altar. And this is supposedly the spot where John was born. If it's not here, it's probably close by. It's a good place to worship him and think about what he did. Hadassah Hospital, the main hospital for the entire nation, is here.